Welcome to this week's episode of ADH Tea with me, Donna, tea pioneer in the north of Scotland.
And me, Sarah, Weenie Mama, intuitive empowerment coach, speaker, author, and disabled mom of 3.5 kids.
The information shared in this podcast is lived experience and personal opinion. It does not constitute nor replace medical advice. ADHT, the podcast, are in no way legally responsible for any actions taken by anyone as a result of listening. The views expressed by any guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Sarah or Donna. Sarah, what is in your cup and what is on your mind
In
today?
my cup is another refill of Siren's Clarity. I'm slightly addicted at the moment, but I absolutely love it, and I have to have at least 3 cups a day to keep me going. And on my mind is lots of things, lots and lots of things. The impending arrival of our new little human and how unprepared I am, both mentally, physically, and practically. And yeah, but I'm just going with it.
Can you ever be prepared for that
Um,
though?
yes, you can, because when it was our first baby, we had nothing else really to occupy our minds, and we were micro prepared down to the most minute of detail. And with every baby, it's got progressively more chaotic. But you know what? It's just they slot in. They're very laid back and very chilled, and it's fine. And we have three other little helpers, so it'll be absolutely fine, but I still have that overwhelming panic. And that's when I actually remember that I'm pregnant, because sometimes I forget. Um, but yes. What about you? Don't know what's on in your cup and what's on your mind?
I have got a 2025 green tea which just
Ooh.
arrived. And yeah, it's amazing. There's nothing quite like a fresh green tea. I think this was picked in March, so March, April. So we're like it's about a month and a half ago. So yeah, it's pretty fresh. And yeah, I can't stop drinking it. I'm gonna have to stop drinking it though because I'm drinking all my stock. I can't do this. I have to behave myself. And yeah, what's in my mind is I am super excited about it, but I'm trying to keep a lid on it because it's not ready to be sold yet. It will be when this is released. But I'm like, I can't tell too many people about it, but it's really exciting. And I'm in this bizarro limbo
Well,
situation with
technically, if this is going to be released when it is on sale, technically you can tell people.
True. Yes, my tea is amazing. Everybody should buy it. It is super tasty and it's really nice cold brewed as well.
I absolutely concur. And I can drink Sound Clarity Cold as well. And it is really nice still and has just as much incredible benefits for me. I prefer it warm, obviously hot, but it's just as good cold.
Have you tried it over ice?
No.
Hmm.
Oh, now you're asking me. That could be interesting. I just need it. Like and I said to you earlier, I'm gonna pack some in my hospital bag because it's become such a staple for me now. I literally would panic if I didn't have it with me at all times. I thought I was being over the top bringing it to a hotel with me once, but it's literally coming to hospital with me. So
There
yeah,
is nothing wrong with that. I
yes,
encourage it.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, so with that, don't even know how that's going to link in, but hey, we'll just get into what our topic today is. So today we are going to be talking about kind of the influence of things that have happened in childhood, more like the way that people relate to you when you're young. Um, I feel personally, again, my own lived experience, is that I often had views or often had ideas which differed from essentially the mainstream, whatever all my other peers were thinking. I was like, oh, but look at this other thing. This other thing's really interesting. And then I would get ridiculed for that and be like, why do you like that? That's not cool. Um, and yeah, that impacted me in a way of I just ended up, as I've said before, keeping my mouth shut and not saying anything and trying to not be visible. And if I made myself small enough, I could still like the things that I liked, but just not tell anyone.
You go under the radar essentially. And I know we
Mm-hmm,
and I
mm-hmm,
spoke about this recently, how sometimes it still to this day stops you from sharing your opinions, particularly or your observations, even or your discoveries,
mm-hmm,
even if, especially if other people have voiced theirs first, and then you're
mm-hmm,
like, mine is an outlier here. I don't want to say
mm-hmm,
this because it mightn't be well received, and that makes me really sad.
mm-hmm. Yep, yep. The example that Sarah's talking about is when I was in Prague for the tea festival, I went along to an amazing like tea tasting and food pairing. It was absolutely incredible. In fact, I will link the book that this amazing lady has written about pairing tea and food. Um, and she had obviously teas made, and she had specific foods, and it was all vegan as well, which was amazing too. So I didn't even need to be like, oh, can I eat this? So we were trying one of them, and because I've been chatting to her a little bit over email, and she went around the table and she was asking people what they thought about this, and she kind of picked on me, but not in a bad way, not a singling out way, but I think more because she could see that I was maybe not quite agreeing with people, but I was like not wanting to stand up and say that. Not agreeing, that's not even the right way. It's just like my experience was different, essentially. And then I stood, well, and she was like, "So Donna, what do you think?" I'm like, "Okay, right now I need to say this." And I said it, and it was, yeah, completely not what anybody else had picked up, but it was okay. I wasn't ridiculed. So I'm kind of like, right, I need to just remind myself that I'm no longer, you know, I don't have this environment anymore. I don't, that's not the situation, but I still have, I suppose it's a fight or flight thing, isn't it? It's a kind of that ingrained protective thing that my body does. I have a body response to it, which kind of gives me anxiety, I
Yeah, well, I
suppose.
suppose when we're younger, it's like there's safety and belonging, there's safety. And I mean,
Mm,
yes, as adults, we still want to belong as well, but we kind of have our people. We know who we are, we have our lives, we have our partner. And so it's less important to impress everybody because you have your tribe already and you kind of know more, well, hopefully, who you are. And it's safer to, and it's like I said to you when we were discussing this, I believe that we are all given differences of opinions and different lenses of perspective on things for that very reason, to share them with each other, to open each other's minds to different possibilities. And I actually think by holding it in, especially on things like tea where you are genuinely an expert, like you probably don't face, even when I said the word expert, her face scrunched up with complete discomfort, but she really is an expert, a very humble, very, but you do have massive expertise in that field, and for you not to share the nuances and things that other people will miss, me being a complete novice with tea, like you've opened me up to a whole new world that I didn't even know existed. And if you hadn't done that, and if you hadn't shared your expertise, I'd be sitting here not able to get my shoes on right now, for on a very simple basic level. But it's true, like you sharing your knowledge and your expertise and your passion for tea has made my pregnancy so much easier. And if every time you wanted to share something or felt the urge to share something, remember that, and then remind yourself how important it is to actually share who you are and what you know, because you could change someone's life. And the danger factor is no longer there, but you could literally change someone's life. And at the very least, you could change their mind and open them up to something that they never considered before. So it's so important that we share from a good place. I firmly believe when we share with an open heart and a pure, with no agenda, it can only be received well. People might raise an eyebrow or they might go, "Oh, not sure about that," but they'll have time to reflect and then they'll go, "Actually, yeah, it's, I never would have thought about it that way, but now I've had time to reflect. Actually, you're right," or I mightn't fully agree with you, but you've brought me a little bit further down the journey with you, and now I see things differently than I did before. So that can't be a bad thing.
Feel like I've been told off.
Not at all. I'm
I
trying
know.
to, I'm being a
I
cheerleader.
know. I know. I know. I just,
But
yeah. I suppose that's quite interesting as well that I kind of feel really uncomfortable right now. So, yeah.
yeah, you don't sit well with compliments. I mean, neither do I. But I can give them out, but I can't receive them. But no, it is so like if everybody was supposed to have the same opinions, there'd only be one of us here because there wouldn't be a need for anyone else. And I just think that there's a reason for, I would say as well, in corporate environments and like professional settings, quote unquote, I would probably be more uncomfortable sharing my, initially at least, sharing my beliefs and opinions if it's different from other people, because I automatically think that everybody else is more experienced than me, more knowledgeable than me, more skilled than me, because it's just how I am. But when I grow in confidence, then and I get to know everybody, and I kind of think, well, actually, I do have something of value to add here, or I'm not. My favorite phrase is, "I'm not paid from the neck down." If you don't want me to give my opinion, don't hire me because you're surely hiring me for my brain or for my diverse view
Mm.
that's different from everybody else's, because otherwise what's the point? And I'm getting, as I get older, I think I'm getting more confident to share, and then I kind of think, well, if you don't like it, well, you don't have to agree with me, but at least listen, and that's fine. But yeah, some environments is a lot easier to share than others, I guess.
No, I completely see that. Yeah. I can understand the whole thing of like growing in confidence as well. Like it's interesting because I'm not have I ever worked in corporate? Nope. I used to work on sites and building sites. And at first, and actually this sort of phase, let's call it, I don't know if it's really a phase, like, but for the first like maybe month or two, I was really not comfortable, I suppose, in the environment. But after that, I was like, I know what I'm doing. And actually, people would come to me and ask me for advice. I get people coming to me and staying in the house that I'm working in. I used to do cosmetic repair, which is fixing stuff other people have broken, essentially. And I used to get other people coming to me and actually just chatting to me, other, kind of work guys on the sites and everything like that.
Yeah,
And sometimes it was for practicing English, depending on where they were from.
yeah,
And it was really nice because I would always enter these things as in that what do you want me to do here? Or, because some of them would actually be like, look, I'm coming here to speak to you in English, and this is how we're going to do it. And I'm like, do you want me to just talk, or do you want me to help you? And like, if there's anything like grammatically incorrect or anything, do you want me to help you with that? And some people were just like, just talk. Some people were like, no, I need to improve. So correct me, obviously gently, not in a kind of, yeah,
yeah,
but yeah. And I don't even know how I managed to get to this topic, but now here we are.
yeah. No, it's. I think that makes total sense to me as well, because that's the kind of nature that you have. You don't assume, you don't condescend, you don't railroad over the top of somebody to like, and you will only share when you know what you're talking about. Like you will hyper research and learn, and like you do.
I very much do, but I don't think that this is a necessarily good thing.
Yeah. Well, no, it is because it means you got an insane level of knowledge. Most people like I'll pick something up and skim read it, and then get frustrated that I don't know everything about it because I've only just glanced at the thing. Like I expect to like get this knowledge by osmosis because I don't have the patience to actually meticulously learn something. But you're the exact opposite. You like just will meticulously gather all the knowledge, all the information, but then you're so humble with it and so kind in sharing with it. You're like you'll share openly with anybody who wants to know any knowledge and skill that you have, which is incredible. So I can totally understand why somebody who wants to learn or wants to just be seen and supported will come to you, because that's just the nature and the energy that you give out, and it's so nice. Whereas I would say 90% of the population, well, maybe that's a bit harsh, 80%, 85% maybe, will do the me version of quickly skim something, consider themselves an expert in their own heads. That bit's not me, I have to say. And then try to paint themselves as being something they're not with people and be like, well, yes, I am an expert because I read half a book once. And like, don't
Yeah,
you
I've
tell
I've
me what you
encountered
know,
so
and
many people like
it's
that.
just all
Like, I mean,
so
yeah, as you
wrong.
say, I to over research everything. And what if I'm talking about something and I'm talking about something
Yeah.
competently, I know this stuff and I know it. So it actually sometimes frustrates me, and I
Mm-hmm.
sometimes have to walk away from conversations when people talk over me about it. And they say things and I'm like, I know that that's not true and I can prove that it's not true. Is it
Yeah.
worth my time to prove that it's not true?
Yeah.
Or will I pick my battles?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, because to be honest,
Hmm.
certain
Hmm.
people like that, they won't hear you anyway. Sometimes actually demonstrating and doing something and going, this is the real thing, and actually silently doing the action or whatever it is will
Mm.
actually make them go, ah, oh, because you can't argue with fact. Like if you can do something and demonstrate that what they're saying is incorrect quietly and humbly but powerfully, then they're like, oh, okay. Whereas no amount of talking to that person is gonna change their mind because one, you're a woman,
Oh
two,
no,
they
it is
know
the case though.
better.
It really is the case.
So and then it's very
Like again,
sexist,
going
but
back to sites, I had I trained two people and they were both male. And one of them, and he's lovely. He's quite a bit older than me. So when I was taking him with me to people's houses, because we used to do like fix things in people's houses as well as just on in new builds, I actually had people completely ignoring me and talking straight to him. And I was like, this is his second day on the job. You want to talk to him? That's fine. I'll see you. See you later. That was fun.
wow, that's scary. Yeah, there's definitely the whole male thing. I get that sometimes with people when I'm out with my husband. Like they'll talk to him and they'll ask him questions about me,
Wow,
and I'm like, I've
that's
got a
so
mouth too.
bizarre.
But yeah, it's funny. But again, it doesn't bother me because I know who I am. I know, it's not. I don't feel like I'm trying to necessarily find my way in the world anymore. The people who are important to me know that I've got a mouth on me. My goodness, do I not have a mouth on me? And I don't feel anybody who makes a wrong assumption. I don't feel like got anything to prove anymore. I did for a long time. It's very frustrating, but I don't feel massively need to prove myself anymore, really. And it's funny when you're talking about having like opinions that are different to other opinions. Growing up in Northern Ireland, which was quite sectarian and quite like segregated and stuff in the 80s and 90s, it was very like Catholic Protestant, never the twain shall meet kind of thing. And it was like very, you don't say certain things to certain people. Yeah, I never really saw people in terms of like their religion or their like segregated. I always just liked who I liked and I talked to who I talked to, and I didn't really. I mean, the motto with my grandparents when I was growing up was never talk about religion, politics, or money. Those were the things that you just don't talk about them, and it's just. But I never really complied with that, and I never really saw people in those terms, and I just talked to whoever I wanted to talk to, hung out with whoever I wanted to hang out with. And then my friends from, let's say, my traditional community, let's say, would be like, oh, it's not safe. You're going to get bothered. You're going to end up getting beaten up or you're going to end up. And I was like, no, like, no, it's going to be fine. Like, I'm not, no, like, why would I? And I never did. Thankfully, I never did, never experienced any form of anything, even around my disability or anything, never. But I think it's because I went in not expecting it and I went in with an open heart and just like, this is me, this is who I am. And thankfully, nothing ever happened. And I was warned several times by my own community, let's say, that I was treading on thin ice and I was going to get in trouble, but I never did. So it
Mm.
just shows you, like, I suppose
Stubborn,
there was a
you?
certain naivety
Really?
around it and a certain stubbornness. But thankfully, I know, I know, who'd have thought it?
That's
But
interesting.
um,
Yeah.
but thankfully, it never backfired on me. Actually, talking about never talking about religion or politics. So I grew up from a Catholic background, and we had religious education in school, obviously, and all that. And the priest used to come in every so often to visit in primary school. And the teacher, bless them, used to try to like prepare us for the priest coming in and like who wants to ask a question, what are you going to ask, all this stuff. And I used to never say anything because they try to like I guess censor you or I
Uh,
don't know what it was that or like give you a script. I don't know what the idea was, just in case we would let the side down, I suppose, and say too much. But of course, I never complied to that. I don't even if I get asked to do a speaking gig now, I don't even use a script or a go off the cuff because it's just who I am. And back then, I was definitely like as a 6, 7 year old, I definitely wasn't using no script. So there was one day the teacher or the priest came in and everybody else did their wee like pre-agreed party pieces for the priest, like, and it was all fine. And then he said, and does anybody else have any questions? And here my hand goes up, and I to this day I can still see the coloured rain out of a teacher's face. He was like, oh, what's she gonna say? This wasn't on the agenda. What's she gonna say? And I said something along the lines of I can't remember exactly because I was only like 6 or something. So if God sees everything and God forgives everything, God's all loving and all forgiving, why do we need confessions? And why do we need purgatory? Why is there a need for purgatory to be a thing? And literally my teacher nearly took a seizure. He was like, and I was asking it from I was an innocent child.
that makes sense. That's a great
There
question.
was no agenda, there was no anything, but everybody, like the whole class was like, big, like, oh, she's gone there, like, really. And like, I know I was genuinely wanting to know and wanting, and the priest was like, you know what? In all my years, and I don't know, he'd been priest for like 40 years or something at that stage. He's like, nobody's ever asked me that, and in all truth, I'm gonna have to go away and think about it because it's a very good question that you've asked, and I don't have a readily available answer, and it's a very, very valid point. So I'm gonna have to reflect on it and think about it. And about maybe 10 years later, so I was in like maybe ready to leave secondary school, and I met the same priest. He was really aged by that point, and he met me and he goes, I've never forgot that question that you asked me, and it really caused me to do some big self-reflection. And I was like, well, wow, like that, and I mean I was proud of 6 year old me because I was like, that took some guts to even ask that.
Hmm.
And I mean, it doesn't bother me now. So why was it bothering me as a 6 year old? I was like, oh my, and for him to remember like a decade later and come back to me and be like, I've been really soul searching on that one and really reflecting on it. And, it was a really hard hitting question. I was like, go me, go 6 year old me. Like, but the poor teacher, I don't think the teacher ever recovered. He was like,
Please,
oh my
did you make the teacher had to take early retirement?
God. Not quite, but they definitely, the color just drained out of their face. Like, it was like, oh, she's just going there. Like, but I mean, I guess I was just taking things that I'd been told, putting them together and going, this doesn't fit. How like make this make sense for me? And it just wasn't. So,
Hmm.
and obviously it was a big one because it took like 10 years later, he still hadn't solved it. So
That's really good. Yay, 6-year-old Sarah.
that's so funny. I hadn't thought about that for ages until we started this conversation. But yeah, I've never really been one for holding back or like that's a taboo topic or I've never really been that way, and that's proof. A 6 year old me,
Hmm.
there was no filter. It was just like
Maybe 6-year-old Sarah will inspire me.
maybe I don't know. I think yeah, I don't know, and maybe it's because I've just been fortunate that I haven't really had any kickback
Mm.
in the way that you have.
Hmm.
Like it hasn't necessarily been amazing every time I've opened my mouth, but there's been no real consequences. I've kind of made people go, okay, let's just gloss over that one and move on to the next thing. But there's been never any negative, like, consequences for me, so I haven't had to put a
Mm-hmm.
lid on things. Maybe I've just been lucky, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe I was probably just an easy target.
No,
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that story.
it's very random, but yeah, it just popped into my head again there, and it's like, wow, yeah, let's take a moment for 6-year-old me.
Maybe we need to have a segment of 6-year-old Sarah.
Oh god, no, I think that was my
Um,
peak, and all went downhill after
no,
that.
no, I don't believe that. In fact, I know that's not true. So, ha. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of ADHT, the podcast. Hope you appreciated Sarah's 6-year-old mini Sarah as much as I did, because I love that story so much. Today, we spoke about how our kind of experience in childhood impact how we relate to the world today. And yeah, we should all learn a thing from little 6-year-old Sarah. So thank you for sharing that.
Be more 6-year-old me.
Yay! And you can find us across on threads at ADHT the podcast. And if you do have any
Thank you so
questions
much for
or
listening. You can
anything,
find us
we do
across on
have an email
threads at
address, which is
ADHT the podcast,
adhtthepodcast at
Instagram as
gmail.com. And we will give you
well,
a little shout
same
out and
handle,
answer any
and you can
questions at
find
the
me
end of the
on.
podcast.
And I've
So
what's
please
happening?
do
Everything's falling out my
get in
head.
touch.
You can find me on Unravel Tea on threads and also Instagram, and you can find Sarah on It's Really Mama TikTok. And if you have any comments or anything, any questions, let us know and we will answer them, or we will do our best to answer them. We will be back in your ears next week. Thank you.
Bye.